All right, all right. You are tuned into Heart Connections. It is 12:36, 12:36. This is Adelaide Brown, your heart coach. And it is time for Heart Talk. Heart Talk is the talk portion of our show. This is where we go to renew our hearts and restore our minds. It's Feel Good Freedom Friday. And we're having an Express Yourself segment. We're talking about seasons, we're talking about freedom. In the next segment, we'll talk about seasons of freedom. In this segment, we're just having an Express Yourself. And I'm excited because I have a guest, my work mama, my radio mentor, just life mentor altogether, especially with these children. My goodness, she helped me out with them. But none other than the beautiful, lovely LJ, Lori Johnson Boyd, right here on KineticHiFi.com. Why don't you tell everybody hi, LJ?
Oh, hi, everyone. How are you doing?
Yes. That's
so good. Am I close enough to the mic? Kind of strange being on a guest mic.
I know it is,
but it's kind of neat.
It is.
Yeah, I like it.
I think you're close enough.
Okay.
I think you are. If she isn't, y'all let me know. Y'all do a good job of letting us know when we're slipping on the air. We appreciate that.
They really do.
Yes, y'all do a good job of letting us know. All right. So, LJ, how have you been?
I've been fine. I've been doing a lot of introspection, just searching, and just a lot of just soul searching, if I can put it like that, since April, when my father passed. And once again, shout out to everyone for the loving on me during that time. That meant a whole lot. I appreciate you all for that.
Yes. So when we've been talking about freedom today, and you mentioned that you've been doing a lot of soul searching since your father passed. Have you, in this soul searching, have you been finding freedom in dealing with his death, but doing the soul searching, which is the work? When people hear, y'all say, you got to do your work, but that's the work that people talk about. So have you been finding freedom, or have you noticed areas where maybe you were captive and didn't realize, but that soul searching may have exposed it to you?
I like that you put it like that, because in that freedom, you're right. I have been finding things during the time about myself personally that I think you're right. When you, one of my mentors, Miss Jewel, she likes to say, the truth will set you free, but at first it will piss you off.
That's the truth.
She was the very first person that I heard say that. So the truth will set you free, but at first it might piss you off. So in the freedom of really getting to know who I am by getting closer to my biological father, the freedom that I got was that I understood. I did a Facebook Live today, and I named it Reflections. So as I reflected on the amount of thirstiness and the amount of just really being so desperate for his love, I found that the freedom that I was looking for in that relationship, or the freedom that I thought I was going to attain by having that relationship with him throughout my life, I realized that I was really searching for a freedom that could only be received by God, from God. And so now that he has passed away, and I was almost like, okay, I'll take that 6 months. That 6 months was very eye-opening. It was very transforming. That 6 months, that for anyone that does not know the story, I did move in with him for the last 6 months of his life, because he was kind of like in a pre-dementia. He would go in and out, and he'd leave the house trying to search for his wife, who was deceased. And he said that, he would say that he's going to go find her, and some people would find him, but he wouldn't be too dressed too well and things like that. So the family realized the last time he fell and was at rehab and was about to go home, the family was like, well, he can't stay by himself. So it was just, to me, the right thing to do, to say, I'll stay with him. And so when I made that decision, it was like everything else was cleared. The way was clear for me to do that. And so I jumped at the chance because I always like to say I stalked my father when so I used to stalk him, as I was growing up. When I would see him places, I'd ride by to see if his car was at the church, and that I'd go and just go sit next to him, and just different ways that when you try to present yourself to people that you really want them to see you. And so anyway, that freedom, I finally found that I think I was searching for the space to hear from him that I guess I wanted to hear him say that he accepted responsibility for pretty much, treating me like I was a pain in the butt. And when I said that to him, he laughed. And I said, "You're laughing, but I'm serious. You gave me that impression."
So you told your dad, you told him that
that's
awesome that you told him that.
I said to him, I said, most of the time when I was trying to, really get to know you, it's almost as if you treated me like, not almost as if, it's like you treated me like I was a pain in the butt. And I think that he pushed me away, couldn't fully embrace me because he was married. And, my mama had me for a married man, and that's our truth, and that's her truth, and it doesn't make me love her any less, but that's just the truth of the story. That's just the story. And so it was what it was. And, so I knew that he just really couldn't embrace me. I didn't even know that he was my father for 13 years of my life, for the first 13 years of my life. So anyway, in all of that, it was a process to freedom that, whom the Son sets free is free indeed. And when Christ sets you free, he wants you to know that, that freedom really comes in knowing that he is the only one that can really heal all those wounded spaces and those empty places. Mm-hmm. And it's not anything or anybody else but him.
That's it. That's really good. And I thank you so much for sharing those pieces, those nuggets, and being very candid and specific about, like, you telling him, I felt like you treated me like I was a pain in the butt, and I feel like people feel that way from their parents. You feel like I'm a burden. I'm an issue. I am a problem. And parents, sometimes we don't say it that way. We will tell them this sick man and stuff. Well, I'll speak for me. I say things like that. But it's said very jokingly. I don't think my children ever really think that I'm like, I don't want you here. Like, I don't want you here. But I have to be honest and say that there have been times where I was not in a free space, where I can see where my children may have felt like they were being a hindrance or whatever. And I'm there all the time. So just the thought of being, with someone who you're not with, not even knowing them, knowing of them for the first 13 years, I just think that is awesome that you got that chance to go through that, because so many of us think that if I could just get to my daddy, he's just going to make everything better. And we don't realize that that's a lot of the reason why you don't know him.
How about that? Mm-hmm.
Like, I just thought my daddy was just going to fix everything.
Wow.
But when I got with him, it was very quick why I didn't grow up with him. And I resolved with him myself at 16 that I was better without him. Mm-hmm. Because that's how toxic he was at that time. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I think this was better. I mean, I'm not saying growing up with a single parent is the best thing, but for certain situations, it is better to be single than to not be an abusive, being a physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, verbal, whatever. But I think that is good that you said that. And I also, tell me a little bit about, if you don't mind sharing, because this is Freedom Friday Express Yourself segment. When you talked about moving in with him for the last 6 months of his life, I know you said you've been doing soul searching since he passed, but what was that like, entering into such a commitment to someone who never committed to you like
that? That's a good question. And it really, I can't really explain it, but it just was like something on the inside of me just knew that it was just the right thing to do, in spite of him not being there for me, in spite of him not receiving me and embracing me. It just felt like it just seemed right, and I could have gone in that direction. I could have gone that route. Well, he's never done anything for me. Why would I want to do that? And I just really, and had it been different situations or circumstances in my personal life, like, I don't know, maybe I would not have been able to do it just because of the surrounding circumstances. And when I say that, I can be more specific. I have a husband that has been battling a crack addiction for a very long time. And I know that, I don't have any fear of sharing that, because I know that there are many people out here who are dealing with people who are dealing with addictions. And so this is something that, it was a struggle for me for a very long time, because I've always felt very codependent, and really codependency is not a good space to be in. Mm-hmm. But I've been very codependent with my husband, and always feeling like I've got to be there. I've got to make sure that, okay, he's out. I don't know where he is exactly. I've got to make sure I'm here. When he comes home, I've got to be vigilant, and just if I see him in the street,
lay before God, pray him to the throne, keep him there, be all accountable, cover up for him, because people are going to ask questions.
Absolutely. And, he was very visible, very known to the community and that sort of thing. And, it was a small community. So it's like, oh, that's her husband, kind of thing. So, so he, the situation worked where he ended up being out of state, and being out of state for, quite some time. So right at that time it happened. It's just like right before he was out of state, or he had gone out of state. That's when my dad, the whole situation happened with him.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it was like, things were kind of moving out the way, especially that being the biggest thing in my life. That would have been the biggest reason that I would have said, well, no, I'm not going to be able to move in, because I definitely would not have wanted to introduce that to my father. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't have wanted to introduce, that struggle that I was dealing with my husband to my father in his space. I would not have wanted to bring that in there, in that space. So that would have been a reason, I guess, excuse or whatever anybody would want to call it, as to why I wouldn't have been able to move in with my dad. And who knows, something else, maybe the family would have figured out something else, some other, situation, circumstance, send them to a niece in Maryland, or, after he died, some other scenarios came up that could have been potential possibilities. And but my dad,
yours was the right one.
That was the right choice.
That was the right choice. God gave you all that time.
He did.
But it's so amazing to me how, and this is how I see things. When you talk about your struggle with your father, and how that transition, well, your struggle with your husband, but how that was transitioning right at the time your father needed you most. So it's like your husband was no longer in the picture in that way, so you could really devote that time. It just goes to show how divine God really is.
Yes, he is.
And how we think things happen by chance, and they don't.
No such thing.
And it's almost like you shared about your husband's illness and just his struggles with that, with his illness of addiction. Because some people say illness. Yes, addiction is an illness.
It is an illness.
Because now that this opioid issue is now plaguing middle class mothers, can't do anything now. So many moms are addicted to pain pills and stuff. Now it's an epidemic. But crack was an epidemic back in the 80s when I was a kid. And they considered them criminals because it was predominantly minorities, Black people on crack. And I just didn't, I knew that was not, they were not criminals. Like as a child being around that, I knew that these people are sick. There's a sickness that'll make you leave your kids like that and stuff. That's an illness. That's not a criminal. And but I'm saying all of that to say this. Do you think that we're talking about freedom and expressing yourself? Looking in hindsight, do you think that God used the foundational man relationship with you, being your father, to help you heal and deal with what you were dealing with your husband? Because you said that you came into your dad's, helping him right at a transitional period with your husband. That was, I'm going to assume, a difficult time, because you said him being in active addiction. So that's difficult.
Oh, yes.
I know personally that is difficult when you're dealing with a loved one in active addiction, because it doesn't have to be active, and that's a different person you're dealing with. But when it's active, it's different. So do you think that, when you look back in hindsight, do you think that it was almost like, hey, I got the remedy to heal her, to help start the process, to start the reflection? She hurting with her husband. Let me send her back to her daddy.
Isn't that the most perfect way to try to take your mind off of the things that you're going through the most? To focus on someone else.
Yeah.
To focus on others and the care, giving care to someone else. because he'll know, God knows what you can bear. He knows your breaking point, if I can put it like that. He knows, the level. And it was just sort of like, so, it's such the word that dropped in my mind is a dichotomy. I don't know if that's the right word, but it was just such a differences of, it was the way it came about was like, you would think that on the one hand, oh, I'm getting a relief. My husband's gone. He's in another state now. I can rest. But at the same time, here was another situation rising up that I needed to be responsible for as well. But it was a relationship that I always longed for. But I think in the dynamic of that relationship at that point, for me being a caregiver, because he was in such need, my father was in such need, it was almost like you couldn't help but fall in love with him because, of the state of his mind, sometime in and out. There were times and moments of clarity, but at the same time, in that we were able to talk. But at the same time, it was like, and being a caregiver, nurturer, what's the word for it? But at heart, just kind of that being, who you are. If you're just a natural caregiver, you just care about people, empathic is what, I feel for other people. That just kind of like, it gave me a satisfaction. It was rewarding because it satisfied me. It took care of so many different, questions that lingered, for so long. Did he really care about me? How did you really feel about me? Was I a pain in your neck, or did you want to be, involved with me? But just really, how did that, why? I could just ask so many things and stuff when he was clear. And I also heard him apologize. He apologized, and he would thank me profusely because of the things that sometimes, he wasn't able to, he was incontinent sometimes. And I mean, just getting, that's maybe a little bit more than, but it was just, caretakers know, if you've ever cared for someone, that
we all, if we're going to live on this earth, going to experience some of that in some way, shape, or form. If not us, but someone we love and care for or whatever. So it's a part of it. What is it? Once a man, twice a child.
That's it. Yeah. And just to see that round head, no teeth man just light up when I would come back to the house, and if you say, "You in for the night?" Yes, sir, I'm in for the night. That's all right with you? Yes, ma'am. You going? Oh, as long as you come back, just little things.
I don't care how old you get. Didn't it feel good to hear your daddy say that? Oh
my God. And he would light up. I mean, he would light up. I could see him, like he would sit in the window a lot. And when you see the car pull up, he'd just do like that. It's just like, and it was transforming. I can't think of nothing else to say but that. So I'll take that all day long.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And it's just like made up for, so many of the years. I can't get that daddy's girl, bounce you on the knee, throw you up and down, play with you kind of stuff. I can't get that. That will never happen, obviously. But that time, those special months, it just really made up for the years, just in that special space when it was just me and him. I'd fix his food and help him, he'd hold up his cup, he'd want something else to drink. I'm like, oh, it's just like that, how you just, King, I would tell, King Luther wants something to drink, So we just had fun. It was just fun, and he'd laugh, I'd laugh. And I remember helping him to bed one evening, and he would say, neck bone and pigtail. I said, oh God, where did that come from? We bust out laughing. I said that. Helping you get into bed just brought neck bone and pig butt or something he said, and it was just so funny. But anyway, it was just just getting misty now thinking about it. But it just sometimes you gotta get yourself to a space where you can get free in your own mind and release stuff.
It's what you needed, but you didn't know you needed it until you got it.
Yeah.
Like you said, you got to get to a space to be free enough to receive that.
Amen.
Like it's like when somebody asks you if you want something to eat, you're like, no, I'm good. They're like, try it. And then you go back and get a plate. I thought you weren't hungry. Well, I didn't realize how hungry I was until I tasted it. And it's like, I don't care how old you get. And that's what I had to see. But my dad too, I had to get to the space where, because my dad is still alive, but we don't have as a child, I dreamed and imagined this relationship we have. And same thing with my mom, but we don't have what I dreamed or imagined. But now I am really learning there's freedom in just embracing what we do have. And this is
Yes.
just what it is. And we can work towards better, but what is really better? Better is relative. Better is ambiguous. It really is. Because better for you could be worse for me, literally. And it changes person to person. That's why we have to have that piece of freedom within. And that's what I think about. You had to have that to even go into that situation, much less care for him. Because see, you could have just moved in and got somebody else to come in and care for him and just said, well, I'm here making sure they take care of my daddy. He's lucky I'm doing this for him. And I think that people think when you get to a certain age that goes away, those feelings. But like you have to, like, what you did was big because I know children who were raised in care and their parents were there with them, did the extra mile for them. And when they needed them, they did not take care of them. They did not show up for them. And I always wonder about that. I'm just, how could you do that? Like, what's that busy in your life? And if it is, you have to stop and say, oh, I need to readjust what's going on right now. So I just really commend you for that. And just to kind of go back to what you had said earlier, with the self-reflection and knowing that you got that time with him, even though you can't get certain times back, the healing process started. Has that caused you to look back at certain situations in your life and see it completely different now? Because the way you see your relationship with your father is changing and transformed. Has that affected how you see your relationships with other people or just other situations in your life?
I want to make sure. So, like with my children,
them professionally. Let's say you didn't like somebody a long time ago. Well, since you've been going through this journey with your dad, now you feel like you need to make amends or something. I don't know, but sometimes when you do a lot of reflection and you heal in one area, you don't realize the direct or indirect effect it had on other areas. Like we don't realize how much insecurity in a relationship with a parent can impact going to get a degree, starting a business, buying a house.
Yeah, confidence. And I think it was, I guess, confronting my mom in a lot of ways too. That was kind of like a spinoff of embracing him so closely on one hand and dealing with, well, how is she gonna feel that I'm doing this because she wasn't really, because she was the one that was there. You know what I'm saying? She was always the one that was there really for me. And so I really fought with that, because I'm thinking, because right at the same time, she was having a pacemaker and my mom's never been in the hospital. And she even told the nurses and the doctors, the last time I was in the hospital was when I was having my daughter, and she's over 56. She's 56 years old. Wow. And she said, that's the last time I've been in the hospital. So now for her to be in the hospital at that moment to have a pacemaker. And so right at the same, it was like within days, so I'm thinking, oh my God, my mom's going to think, well, you gonna move in with your dad? Aren't you
turn your back on me?
Kind of thing. But at the same time, she was saying, well, your brother's here. My daughter, which is her granddaughter, obviously is there, and so at the time it was a tough place, but that really caused me to really reflect on a lot of our relationship. Yes. A lot of things about our relationship. Where was she emotionally that allowed her to get in a space where, now she's so hung up on this married man and that she has to feel like that's the only value she has is in that relationship that she couldn't fully embrace as her own. And, it just opened up the door to a lot of reflection and really, me and her kind of got into some conversations and some things about, him. So it did, it just expands on one relationship, expands others, it causes you to reflect more and to see how they're related, So that really was a space with me and her to be able to now really kind of get some things out in the open that may not have been so easy to talk about before.
That's awesome. And see, that's what freedom is all about. It's getting things out in the open that were previously held captive.
Yes.
And sometimes it is those conversations. Because yes, she was there, but that does not take away my pain of growing up without a dad. I'm very thankful for you being there. But I still need this. It's like I always tell people, for you, I've heard women say, well, I just didn't tell him who the daddy was because I'm taking care of the child. It really doesn't matter. It does matter. It's like looking in the mirror and seeing half of your face and never being able to see the other half. But you see a silhouette. You know something exists there. You just don't have access to it. And you walk around your whole life like that. Just half of your body it's something there. I just don't have access to it.
Wow. You know, when you described that just now, what I thought about it, you know, how it's a phenomenon that people who have had limbs who don't have a limb.
Phantom pain. There you go.
That's what
that's dropped in my But guess what? But the thing about and that's really good. I'm glad you said that because my background is in healthcare and I spent most of that time in a vascular practice where people got their legs and arms or whatever amputated. So that was something I was very familiar with people complaining about that because I started off in medical records. So I'm just reading the medical records and I see what the patients are saying. And I'm glad that you said that. But the thing about phantom pain, when you talk about in your heart, it's real. You know, your heart does not, when you relive something bad that happened to you, your heart, your mind does not know that that's not currently happening. So, you know, when you tell a story, you recount things, you laugh, you smile, or you cry and get angry, whatever you're doing, you are taking yourself through that again. It's not an isolated event that happened a long time ago. It's happening right now for you physiologically. So your body will react to that. That's why when actors get into it, they sweat, they can cry because they are physiologically reacting to the emotions that they're telling themselves that they're feeling.
Wow.
Because if you're acting, you're telling yourself the script. This isn't your life, but you're teaching it, you're thinking it into reality. And see, many of us don't realize that we're professional actors.
How about that?
You know, that phantom pain is real.
Wow.
It's pain that you can't see, but that is really there, unlike the limb. And the thing about the limb, what phantom pain is, it's the nerve endings. The nerve endings that were cut off with the amputation, they're still trying to get to the rest of the body they were connected to. So your neurological system is still like, hey, I'm still trying to send signals down there. And see, when we don't have freedom, it severs. When we don't have freedom, it severs us from living to our fullest potential. It literally cuts off our ability to heal and to overcome. And that's why we have to express ourselves and just talk about stuff like this. You know, somebody, well, what is your biggest? I just wanted to talk to you about this because it's Express Yourself and it's Feel Good Friday.
Yeah. Right.
And I just wanted to talk about it. But I can promise you, somebody thought it was phantom pain. They didn't realize it's real. And it's real every time we relive it. That's why I think it's so beautiful that you got to go back to your dad 6 months before he passed away. Because you got a chance to retell those stories. You got a chance to look back at those hurtful things of him not caring or not wanting to be bothered. But now you're looking at it through the lens of somebody that did have a good relationship with their dad versus not. I just think that's beautiful. And for somebody who may be listening right now, because we get ready to close this section out, thank you so much, LJ, for doing this. I really thank you for doing this. You may be listening and maybe your father has passed away or your mother has passed away and you're like, well, she got those last 6 months. I don't have that. But remember what she said at the beginning. Remember that she said that even after he passed away, she realized that what she was seeking from him, only God could give her anyway. So what I'm saying to you is true freedom is a true foundation in Christ, a true connection to the Heavenly Father, the God of the universe. And I'm sorry to jolt you guys with that and I had the music down for the interview. But I just want to encourage you, wherever you are, whatever you're going through, just understand that he's a good, good father. And he's already set provisions for your freedom. The question is, will you accept it? Will you embrace it? The choice is yours. Think about it. We'll be back shortly. Stick around. Kai High Five.
Amen. Hello? Is